Hey there, welcome back. So today we will get started with generics. First of all, we will create a class based on a property of object type, and then later down the line we will create a actual generic class. So interesting stuff coming up. So let's get started. Alright, so let us get rid of this auto generated stub, and we would be creating a class. The name of the class could be, for example, data. And inside this class, first of all, we would be having a property of object type. The name would be obj maybe. And based on this object, we will create a constructor. Let me right click, navigate to source and create a constructor using field. We will also have a getter for this. So I will again navigate to source and generate the getters and setters. We only require the get method, get obj method. Right, we don't require the call to super method. And finally, let us also add the toString method, which is optional. We might require the toString method, but let's create this. Alright, so this seems to be good enough. And inside our class app, let's do something. In here, I will say data equals new data, and now the data is of object type, right? And an object can contain any type of data. So for example, I type in string. So this is some weird sum string, right? In order to reduce confusion, let me type in sum string. All right, so now data contains a object, and inside the property we have a string, right? And now suppose I type in string variable equals data dot get object. Now when we code this program, even though we know that this particular call to get obj method will return a string, there is an issue. And if we check, it will say type mismatch, cannot convert from object to string. And here we need to cast. So we need to type in like this, a string. So we are casting from object to a string, and here is the output. And then we can do this thing. We can simply print the variable maybe, and our program should work. Here we go. So there are a couple of things. First thing is that we are making use of object, which is a mother for every object, the parent class for every class, right? So this isn't that recommended. And moreover, we need to cast the data before using it. So there are two things which we must remember, right? Now making use of what we say generic class gives us a couple of advantages, like we can implement some rules in generic class. We can bound the type, we can also implement the comparable interface. How to do all of these is something which we will see in our forthcoming videos. But now let us proceed further and create a generic class. In order to give you a better understanding, let me comment out all of these code in order to reduce confusion. And now inside main method we have nothing. And finally, let me hit couple of enters in here and create a class, a generic class. So I will again type in class. The name would be like generic class, and now we will give the type. So we will make use of diamond operator and type in T. T symbolizes type. Here we go. So this is good. Moving forward, we will add a property. So this would be a private property. The type would be T. This symbolizes that we don't know the type as if now, but this would be some type. So a ambiguous situation. We don't know what is the type, but definitely the object of this class can contain any type of data. Now the name of the variable could be like data, right? And moving forward, we would be creating a constructor using field. Here we go. Then let's create the getter method for the same as well. And let's create the toString method as well. Alright, so here is our generic class. right? Pretty cool. All right. Now coming to our class app, let's create an object of generic class. Now as we know that a object can contain any type of data. We have already seen in this example that we have easily stored some string in this data, but definitely we can store any type of data. That could be a variable of a string type, integer type, character type, double type, float type, or even custom object. There won't have been any issue. Now same is the case of generic class. So in here I will type in generic class, then I will type in generic data maybe equals new generic class, and the data would be as if now let us pass in some data as a string information. So the data is of a string type, and then moving forward we will create a variable of a string type. String data equals generic data dot get data. All right, so this is cool. Now the information is received inside this data variable, but wait a second, there is an error, and an error is a issue, and the issue is type mismatch cannot convert the object to string, similar to the previous situation in here, right? So what is the solution? We will cast it. All right, so as soon as we cast it, the issue is vanished, and we can check whether we get the output properly or not. Here is the output, which is perfect, but till now there is absolutely no change when we compare to the previous situation where we were making use of the class data, which is based on object. So why to make use of generic? Now there is a catch in the story, and the catch is in this warning. If we hover upon this warning, it says generic class is a raw type, reference to generic type generic class. T means type should be parameterized. Now friends, whenever we cast things, the performance of the application will go down because type casting requires some time, require processing. So we won't use this. This solution isn't good enough. Moreover, we will take care of typecasting in different manner. In fact, we will symbolize that which type of information is getting stored in the object, and the way is pretty simple. We will make use of the diamond operator, and we will specify the type. So we are specifying that the information which is being stored in this object would be of a string type, but look, there is again a warning, and this is related to type safety, and it is saying that the constructor generic class object belongs to the raw type generic class, reference to a generic type generic class. T should be parameterized. Now this particular statement is little confusing for you, I am pretty sure. So in order to fix this, again there is a solution. Hover upon this warning, and in here there is the solution of infer generic type argument. Let me click on this, and the issue is fixed. Now again we have specified that we are passing the information of the string type to the constructor of the class. Getting my point? So we are specifying the type of the object, and we are also specifying the data which would be passed to the constructor. And now if we see, there is no warnings, right? And again our program should work properly. Now the advantage of this particular approach is definitely typecasting is no longer required, which is fantastic, right? Now reducing or eliminating typecasting is definitely one of the advantage. The second advantage is type safety. Now definitely, for example, the data is not a string. For example, I am passing an integer value. There is a compile time error. So this is very good because we are getting a compile time error in here. Let me comment this out again, and let me uncomment this scenario where we were making use of data class. Now in here the data is of string type. Suppose I type in 1 in here, and in place of typecasting to string, we are doing nothing, right? So even though we are passing in a string, there is no warning, but there is a runtime error. Definitely there is an issue. So these kind of issue won't occur in generic class, which I have already shown you. Let me undo the change. Now in here, there is this some text. This data is a string. Let me try to convert this to integer. All right. Now there is a issue which says that change the cast to a string, which is cool. So there are scenarios where you will get some compile time error, and there are scenarios there would be some runtime error. Now these scenarios are confusing, these scenarios are ambiguous, which is not a good thing. If imagine there is a runtime error in the production, that's a disaster for your team, for your company.